So what do you think, you guys? Can we, as part two opens up here, and I told that horrible story, what can we do? And cohesiveness, when we look at it, two types. Socio-emotional, which is kind of what I was discussing at the end of the first part there, with the debacle of my behavior. And then instrumental. So let's take each in turn. Now, socio-emotional, what can we do? Well, it's easier to function in smaller groups. And I don't know if any of you've gotten an opportunity, I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek, to work in a group that's like 12 people. What you notice when 12 people try to communicate, you're probably going to end up with 3 subgroups of 4 communicating. So you don't have a group of 12, you have 3 groups of 4. In this class, I'm trying to strike a balance. I think 6 is about maximum, so that's what we're going with. 4 is probably ideal in this regard. So smaller groups, better way. Maintain a good public image for your team, right? Makes it better for everyone involved. Socio-emotional cohesiveness, we have leadership that encourages cooperation. Right? It emphasizes member similarity, and this creates a bond between people because they're in it together and they see how they're similar. Point out outside threats. Now, this is not one of my favorite go-tos, but if you want people to tighten up, lock arms, become more cohesive, then often this is the result of feeling threatened by an external group. But I think there's ways to achieve this without having to resort to identifying external threats. I think that carries a lot of downsides, but it does increase in-group cohesion. Right? Now, instrumental is more about the task, right, rather than the relationship. Soft skills, often socio-emotional. Hard skills, instrumental. So people talk about those using different terminology, but you get the general gist. So instrumental, update and clarify goals. If the project is changing, then maybe revisit the mission statement or get clear on where the project is going, because sometimes the environment changes, the context changes, and the project may need to transform itself a little bit. Each member gets an important function, and that's something that I'm going to stress in this class. Who's going to do what? Notice most of the assignments will be split into, let's say, 6 potential pieces, so who's going to do what? But all are important, right, because I'm grading the team assignment. Utilize special talents. So if someone's got a special talent, then let's use it, right? If someone is really good at creating a PowerPoint presentation, then they should be doing that, right? If there are any design elements, we talk about this in psychology, if there's any design elements to be exploited, then Dr. Bengal is probably our go-to because he has some of the best graphic design skills of anyone in the department, right? So why wouldn't we use him for that purpose? If we're looking for someone who's about creating projects, right, and making students self-reliant, then I might point to Dr. Cravens-Brown. So I already know about my colleagues, and I know where their special skills are, and if I was designing a team of my colleagues, then I would probably select people on the basis of what they bring to the party, is the cliche. What special talents do they have that would enhance the project? Equity and recognition of individual achievement and contributions. So we should try to be equitable. That is, we should try and reward people and recognize people consistent with their contributions. Now, this can become tough, and this is why in this class we're going to try to not only do a team project, but be able to identify individual contributions within that project. Yeah. And remind members of their interdependency. There are 6 parts to this project, well, whatever the project is, and we need everyone's participation, right? And we need everyone's high level of participation. Leaders and teams, what are some skills that leaders can bring to successful team performance? Orient the team to the problem-solving situation. So always bring teams back. If a team is getting sidetracked, you know, if they're going off the reservation, then bring them back. Bring them back. Say, hey, well, you know, that's really important, and I see how that's really interesting, but this is essentially our mission, right? And that's the importance of a mission statement. Helps remind us what we're about. Organizes and manages team performance. Okay. Promotes positive team environment and has the soft skills to make that happen. Facilitate and manage task conflict. Again, part of the soft skill repertoire. appropriately promotes perspective and perspective taking. So let's look at the big picture. Sometimes we need to say that, hey, maybe we're glossing over some details. So notice how a team leader can redirect people's attention and the scope of their attention at any given moment. What do you guys think? You like team building exercises? Most team building exercises I don't see a whole lot of purpose to or a whole lot of value in. I don't even understand necessarily what they're attempting to do. There's not a lot of evidence to support the time and money that's spent on these activities. Right? So if your work team is told, hey, we're going to meet at Dave and Buster's, right, or some drinking gaming establishment, and we're going to go do this, and it's well, what is the point? What are we going to walk away with? What will this allow us to do better than before we did it? So a lot of team building skills, team building sessions don't really, I think, have a clear goal in mind, other than bringing people together outside the workplace. And I don't know if there's a benefit there or not, right? I think a lot of times it's better to focus attention on more specific soft skill training. So we might have specific trainings within the team on perspective taking, right? But that's the goal, is to increase each individual's ability to enhance their perspective taking ability. Maybe we do active listening exercises, right? In fact, that's something we'll do in psych of adjustment, right? Or debiasing exercises. That is, recognize our bias and then help people work through their ability to debias. So I think more purpose-built activities that maybe feed more to individuals within a team environment, but then enhance team performance as a result of learning about oneself, is probably a better principle for these type of activities, rather than simply, let's get people outside the work environment and it will do this magic shit that I don't even know what, but let's go for it, huh? Right. And a lot of people make a lot of money. A lot of consultants make a lot of money doing this stuff, and it's nebulous what benefits will accrue. So, virtual teams, information technology allows members in different locations to conduct business. This is our future. So we're in the 21st century. We be virtual. We be virtual in education now. My wife has worked from home, for 2 or 3 years now for Nationwide. She does a lot of work with other people. She's part of these teams, but the work is done virtually. So, but the downside is it often lacks face-to-face contact, but Zoom has kind of been a game changer, and other video conferencing software that's readily available and seems to perform reasonably well now. Now, one problem they have at Nationwide is a lot of people don't want to turn their cameras on during meetings, and if you look at our Zoom meeting, you would see that maybe 10% of the people have their cameras turned on and the other 90% do not. Right? As a psychologist, I like to having the cameras turned on. I realize there's a lot of legitimate reasons to keep them off, and I'm not saying that you got to turn them on. I've talked to students about this already, and they said, no. I don't want to be required to turn on my camera. Now, in other kinds of teams, I might require it. In some of my wife's meetings at Nationwide, they require you put that camera on, right? I read faces. That's part of what I do, is I look at faces, I read faces. That's an important source of feedback for me. So especially if I'm leading a team, I probably want their cameras turned on so I can see their faces. It lets me know how I'm doing, in part in my leadership role, right, by being able to read faces and read reactions. So, but that's still up to kind of debate at this point in time. Note, for you guys who are interested in IO psychology, isn't that a great study right there? To what extent, and create your hypothesis about, having to show faces, having not to show faces, develop some kind of dependent measure, and go for it. A lot of opportunities now. So, self-managed teams, what do they bring to the party? These are groups of employees granted administrative oversight over their work and may provide the greatest opportunity and benefits to the organization. Again, if you're developing an organization of leaders, this becomes a very effective way for them to experience the benefits of their acquired leadership talents. So, We see this through increased responsibility and accountability. The downside to this is many people misinterpret this, and like they told us in psychology, hey, you're going to have to do more with less. I was like, awesome, right? But what they're doing is giving me more responsibility but not providing the resources to manage that responsibility. So it ends up being demotivated. If you want to increase people's responsibility, you want to increase their accountability, make sure that you increase their resources in a commensurate way to make this happen. Otherwise, you just end up frustrating people, burning them out. Right? Yield greater autonomy and authority, and autonomy is one of, at least according to some theorists, autonomy is a central human motivation, is to experience autonomy. That is being able to call one's own shots. Right? So self-management skills, let's learn to self-reinforce. That is, tell ourselves we're doing a good job when we are. Engage in self-observation, look at what we do and evaluate it honestly. Self-expectations, set those expectations that are consistent with the team's output and needs. Self-goal setting is the way to make those expectations real. Rehearsal of skills and tasks that are important. So if you're the one who's been elected to speak for your team, right, then have you rehearsed, because it reflects on the team overall. Okay? And be self-critical. Not to be one's own worst enemy, that's not what I'm talking about, but to be honest about evaluating one's performance. So, in all, homework 3, this is a pretty short one, pretty straightforward, but I think it'll be a benefit to your team's performance throughout the course. Now, I asked 30 students in summer in the social psych class what might be done to reduce the pain dissatisfaction elicited by team projects. And the consensus was that each team member's contribution will be clearly identified, and that was the number one of all their suggestions and ideas combined, right? So, to that end, and this then is homework 3, right? Please discuss as a team how you're clearly going to identify each team member's contribution to the team assignments, right? Now, setting this up is, there's really 2 parts to this assignment. One is, first of all, you guys got to discuss as a team. And then once you've finished your discussion, right, you're ready to produce the assignment. So I want to interject this idea, and I want to see this in the assignment, right? It says right there, your discussion deadline. So, working from the due date, and let's say the due date is here, then at what point must the discussion be conducted and finished to allow time to produce the output that is due on the due date? And there's several assignments when I'm going to ask you for an interim due date of some component. So that will be the first question that's answered in this assignment. As you're setting up your team to accomplish this project, what day, and I want to spelled out that way, I want the date of your discussion deadline, and I want that prearranged. And then, this is the results of the discussion, how we propose to track who does what. Right? So you can say, this is how we propose to track who does what. Could be up to 2 paragraphs, or it could be a bullet list. It's probably going to contain multiple items, right? So again, I want this to be thorough enough so that another team could receive what your team put out as a final project, and they could operate as a team using your suggestion. So make it that explicit, that level of detail, so that it's useful to another team, right? Not that another team will use it or even see it, but I want that level of specificity. Right? So, and really you're answering the question, how we propose to track who does what, and then tell me how you propose to do that. So this is self-reflection about how your team will operate in the future. You're kind of doing the soft skills here. This is kind of the socio-emotional aspect of the teamwork, right? And you're going to be clear on it, and you're going to think about it in advance. You're not just going to let this up to chance, as so many organizations allow teams to do. So we're going to be specific about it because, look at, this is a close class on organizational psychology, and I want you to use your team as a learning device. It's an object of analysis. Yes, it's to complete the assignments, but it's also to explore the concepts that I'm discussing with you and you're reading about in your book. Okay? So, you can check that out online, and I'm going to leave you with this. a Belizean sunset, and this is from one of our sailing trips. This sailing trip, we went to Belize on a nice catamaran, spent 2 weeks out there. It was an amazing time, and well, when you're offshore and you're looking back at shore of Belize, there you go, there's the sunset. Anyway, my best to you guys, and we'll talk later.